Today, in the interest of balance, I want to talk about the scourge of far-left violence which is plaguing the streets of Melbourne, enacted by dangerous terrorist scum like Antifa or Antifa or Antifa. That's how you got to say it, okay? Depending on where you come from. Yeah, so we'll get on to this bloke and his rocks in just a second. Just if we could do a little bit of a minute or two on March for Australia, first of all. Because one thing I noticed about the March for Australia, the second one, was that not many people actually talked about the March for Australia. And that seemed to serve the interests of the March for Australia folk pretty well. So I'd like to look at the March for Australia. How'd that go?
People will tell you they will cope and say that we're a nation of immigrants. This country was settled and built by Europeans, predominantly the Anglo-Saxons, the Anglo-Celts from 1945. After the war, we brought in people from the Baltics.
Yeah. Oh, righto, mate. Fuck, this guy goes on. Okay, we're going to look at the main themes of the second March for Australia. All right, in brief. And the first and major theme of the day was people, in the absence of the National Socialist Network, who said they weren't going to come along this time, people, speakers, fleshing out their white Australia policy takes, okay? This is Matt Tryee, the organiser of the Melbourne March for Australia, a neo-Nazi, officially, interestingly enough, the most boring neo-Nazi of all time. He went on for about what felt like 27 hours. This man manages to squeeze all the blood out of blood and soil.
Predominantly the Anglo-Saxons, the Anglo-Celts from 1945. After the war, we brought in people from the Baltics, the Balkans, the Southern Europeans, the Mediterraneans, the Greeks, Italians. Who's looking after our people? Who's looking after the founding stock of this country? Society, community, nation that has become more multicultural, more race or faith-based, has become more dangerous. Since 1958, when the Menzies government first repealed the dictation test, governments since have either repealed, amended or introduced new migration policy that has left us with an open border.
To fight to keep our national identity, to protect our way of life and to be proud of our Anglo-Saxon and European heritage and culture.
Our Anglo-European ancestors settled this nation, built this nation, and passed this great nation on to us, their descendants. They did it for us, so we could live in the greatest country on earth.
Arthur Caldwell, leader of the Australian Labor Party in 1967, had said, if Australians are ever foolish enough to open their gates to people other than Europeans, they will soon find themselves fighting desperately to stop the nation from being flooded by hordes of non-integratables.
They didn't do it so that we could be disenfranchised in our own suburbs and pushed out of electorates with hordes of imported voter blocks.
The foundational bloodlines of Australia replaced with new Australians who do not share the morals or principles our nation was built on.
I don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but they're both neo-Nazis. They're both the primary organisers of the Western Australian marches for Australia. Here's some of the stuff that Kayla has said. If you want to see more receipts, just go and follow them yourselves. They say this stuff all the time. They're open white supremacists, and you know they're campaigning on a cultural agenda, white replacement, white genocide. Just so as you understand, they've abandoned any of the economic stuff, except for where it sort of serves them to make a cultural white supremacist, white separatist argument for mass deportations and not having any non-white citizens.
Australia is its people. Australia is blood and soul. Australia is us.
The other three main categories of speeches, apart from the neo-Nazi stuff, were parasite politicians or wannabe politicians working out exactly how neo-Nazi they were allowed to sound to suck off this base without getting in too much trouble.
Every person has a homeland, and this country is home to the Australians. We're our own kind. We're an Anglo nation of the Anglosphere. We are the descendants of conquerors. We are those who tamed wild frontiers, who built empires from nothing, and we once ruled the waves. We are Australians. We were the masters of the seas, the architects of industry, the lions of the southern hemisphere. We held back Imperial Japan. We are the empire of the antipodes.
Using the word antipodes, that doesn't even scratch the surface. That is nowhere near the most ridiculous thing to come out of this deeply ridiculous man's mouth. I have a feeling I'm going to develop a minor fixation with him one day. Stay tuned. Listen to him here getting a common neo-Nazi term of phrase confused with the type of garden fertiliser.
Close the borders tight, deport the illegals and criminals, slash the visas, prioritise our own blood and bone.
People with obvious working class struggles and concerns who are so far removed from a world that they know about, that fights for them, or that recognises what they're going through, that the closest available fight they think they can access to get some relief is the one where they fight brown people.
My wife, I'm struggling to get her a disability pension. I've tried 2 times and been knocked back. Yeah, my wife's been without any income because of a stroke since December last year, and the government will not look after her. Yet we get a lot of immigrants coming in that we don't know their history, their records. We don't know whether they're a criminal, and they get handouts. Yes.
And the third category of other speaker, aside from neo-Nazis, is generally uncategorisable, bizarre or cringe shit.
Yes, some of you have been assigned to monitor me specifically. A few weeks ago, some of your colleagues came to my door unannounced in plain clothes, 2 officers and 2 mental health professionals. They said they were concerned because of the things I'd posted online. You asked me many questions to try and trap and categorize me. Questions like whether I had an interest in explosives. I told them, and answered truthfully, I have an interest in all areas of science, whether it be chemistry or nuclear physics. I could probably build a nuclear bomb if I wanted to. But tell me, is knowledge illegal? No. You wanted confused because the system fears minds that learn too deeply.
Yeah, I'm breaking the system by learning and thinking too deeply.
But no, the only bombs I manufacture are truth bombs, and I don't detonate, I declare. And the only thing that my words are radioactive to are falsehoods and lies. And each sentence I speak triggers a chain reaction of awakening. And at the end of the visit, I asked them, are you guys allowed to have opinions? And for a moment, they all froze, looking at each other like a program dealing with unexpected input.
Albanese, meet me here in Sydney Square so we can the debate. I'm gonna say this, Albanese, your time is running out. You can't push it underground.
Oh, and this one definitely firmly falls into the uncategorisably weird category. This is Sherman Burgess.
When we stand up for our own people, we have a certain very small sect of our own countrymen, like the race traitors over there,
yes,
who turn against their own people,
yes,
in favour of a foreign entity.
Yes.
Here's the amazing character trajectory of Sherman Burgess. He went from, in 2015, being the great Aussie patriot, one of the leading light first wave of influencers among the then nascent, Reclaim Australia patriot movement. Then he was a Nazi. Yeah, all pretty straightforward. That's usually what happens. Then he became like a magic Viking LARP guy. Yeah, here he is LARPing as a Viking now. Then he was a Muslim for a bit.
People from white supremacist, neo-Nazi movements that dislike Muslims very, very much. Coming from someone who was probably the biggest Muslim hater in Australia at one stage in my life. So I challenge you, pick up the Quran, read it with an open mind.
Anyway, as you can see by the Totenkopf there, now he's back to being a Nazi again. Yeah, what a character arc, hey? I'm hoping that his next character turn, he becomes like a pirate or a sea creature, maybe. He could try that for a bit. Or maybe Doctor Who. He could try and be Doctor Who for a series.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasul Allah.
You know what? I've done what I do for about 10 years of my life now. And now I'm a man in his 40s, and I've accrued enemies, and they're all like this fucking bloke. And it just occurred to me, that's not something to be really proud of, is it?
President Trump, my name is Scott Challen and I'm standing in front of thousands of Australians here. Let me hear you guys.
Standing with thousands of people at the Australian Nationalist March that banned foreign flags, but half the cunts seem to have Israeli flags, while playing Notice Me Senpai with the United States President. Righto! A first round March for Australia organiser from Adelaide joined the counter.
The initial rally when I got involved was meant to be about the lack of supply of services for the migration numbers they were bringing in. So I tried to send that messaging. It was very quickly accessible that that wasn't the messaging that was meant to be on the days.
Sydney live streamer Chris Covery's also milled around the rally looking for pick-me's to put in his video before finally settling on having chats with the main organisers of the March for Australia about who is and isn't white.
Immigration with that simulation isn't. Are you an invader?
No.
You've assimilated.
No.
Look at the shirt.
I'm a very peaceful little tiny blue shadow today. Not an invader. Not an invader.
Send the fuckers back! Send them back! Send them back! Send them back!
Is George Jamal white? No.
He's Arab.
Big Chucky probably doesn't make that. Great.
I don't even know what Big Chucky is.
He's Choco, isn't he?
He did endorse though.
I have heard that. I haven't watched it yet.
Yesterday, I saw that. Yeah.
Is Drew Pablu white?
Oh, come on.
Yes. Is Drew Pablu white?
He's not just Greek, is he? He can't be. Is he just Greek? Oh, hold on. He's like Cyprus Greek, yeah?
I'm just going to let the question hang.
Look, I mean, he doesn't look white. He actually, he gives me like Spanish vibes or something. I don't know. But I mean, look, I guess if he classes himself as white, I guess he is. Look, I don't know. Come on, Chris. Jesse! Is Drew Pablu white? No.
No? Is Drew Pablu white?
Well, he's, what did he say? He's Greek Cypriot, I think he says. So there may be, like, from the Ottoman Empire, potentially some Turkish blood in there.
Anyway, no one's white. But if you're not white and you agree with this, then we're willing to consider whether you might be white. You can see how these people just aren't really interested anymore, if they ever were, in going like, oh, I'm broke, I can't get a house, 5-year port. You know what I mean? That's just out the fucking window. You see that, right? Oh, sorry, I was supposed to talk about the scourge of far left-wing violence, wasn't I? Fuck. No, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm so sorry. I'm getting there. It's the biggest issue plaguing our society. But can I just do one more little thing first? Hang on a second. I just want to quickly look at the numbers. All right? Let's crunch the numbers. And I think the first marches were actually underreported in their sizes, to be honest with you. So let's go. The October Melbourne March for Australia had around 1,000 people attend it. The first one in August 31st had around 15,000. The October Sydney March had around 4,000 people attend. The first had over 10,000. Brisbane went from 15,000 to 2,000. Perth went from around 10,000 to around 500 in the rain. Adelaide went from around 15,000 to around 1,000. Hobart went from around 500 to around 100. And only Canberra's remained stable at around 1,000. At 66,500 down to 9,600 people. That's an 85% decrease in attendance since the first rallies. It's simple why this happened. Nothing really changed. Everyone who went on the 31st of August still has often legitimate grievances that they've misidentified as stemming from waves of mass migration. But then they all went along to these events in August, and then they had to come home and gradually realise that they'd mostly, unwittingly for the most part, participated in what amounted to little more than a series of National Socialist Network promotional and recruitment stunts. They realised that because we told them. We ran a successful information campaign telling people the truth about the Nazi stuff. After the unprecedented step forward for militant National Socialism that was August the 31st, what a scathing indictment on its ability to keep people after all the subterfuge is done and the power level is shown, these fascists lose 85% of their people. For the 15% who remain, it's okay to talk to them about cultural stuff, or in other words, white separation, white genocide, white segregation. Shouldn't be a surprise because, remember where we live and remember how many votes Anning got for the same platform in 2019. But they are a vastly reduced movement now. I would have loved for that to have been the news from the day. It was the news from the day. In fact, it's just that no one wanted to talk about it because we were talking about the scourge of far-left violence. Since the 2nd March, after Senior Constable Wayne custody death here, poured some rocks out on the ground and talked about far-left violence, I've been receiving this sort of message a lot. Please stop ruining our city. We've all just had enough. The behaviour yesterday was beyond disgusting. The idea here is that I am pulling Melbourne's activist strings from afar, like some sort of evil anti-fascist puppet master, and that I'm the one who directed those rocks to be either pelted at Senior Constable Wayne Custody Death's partners in blue, or dumped on the ground for them to pick up, depending on who you ask. Although I do make anti-fascist content, and although lefties in Melbourne do seem to assume that Melbourne is the only place in the entire country where politics or rallies or anti-fascism happens, I would like to remind people messaging me that I myself have not lived in Melbourne for around 5 years now. And thank God, because Melbourne is a fucking clown show. The first thing that I want to acknowledge here, or point out, is the fact that when it comes to the tensions on the day, it is absolutely true to say that the cops started it. And that's like usual, and you can argue with me, and you will, I bet, in the comments, but if you don't have the wealth of experience and contacts among activists and people on the ground and journalists that I do, then you don't have any fucking idea of what you see from the bits of footage that have been scrounged together from mainstream media channels for you to draw hasty conclusions at. You've got no idea. You have to step back and listen to me in this respect. And I'm telling you that the tensions started. And we're not talking about exacerbated or how the full day went. We're just going first things first here. They were started by the police. The way they did that, as I understand it, was by, from the very outset of the rally, when there was no confrontation yet, the two, opposing contingents had yet to get anywhere near each other. There was simply a march happening by the anti-racists. The police were entering into the crowd and they were accosting people, forcing them to remove their masks on pain of arresting them. Now, this is a misuse of the mask laws that were introduced in 2017. Those laws are meant to dictate that people can be compelled to remove their masks for identification, as I understand it, by VicPol. Remember, I was around for the introduction of these laws. I was wearing fucking face masks for whatever reason at these rallies and such when VicPol were introducing these laws. I know what they're for. They're meant to be so that they can identify you if they come up to you and ask for that. Instead, these coppers are now using it to simply force people to remove their masks. The effect this had on the day was exacerbating tensions, okay? It turned it into a hostile situation way before any conflict occurred. Here's some of the injuries that people received at that rally. They received it from rubber ball grenades, flashbangs, military-grade OC spray, stuff that is documented as having caused permanent blindness, burns, broken bones, amputations, and even death. Now, if you've just popped into these comments to come and tell me I'm a terrorist and I should get declared, or prescribed as such, well, more power to you, go for your life. Frankly, it gives me a thrill of illicit excitement, and it makes me feel like I'm, more interesting than I otherwise feel. So go for it. Please do it. You know what I mean? But if you actually want to learn more about what I'm saying, go to the Melbourne Activist Legal Services website and read this report. There's lots to be concerned about here. They started the violence and they caused the bulk of it. It should be really important to acknowledge this fact if you show up to these rallies, no matter which side of politics you're wrong, because if you engage in the tacit acceptance of this VicPol militarisation shit that has occurred, then you are getting very used to the boot on your and your comrade's neck. So used to the boot on your comrade's neck that you can't see it anymore. I don't want to do that. And I also don't really want to start policing how my comrades should best cope with breathing with a boot on their neck. So I don't say the following to henpeck individuals per se, but I insist on discussing and debating what I see as shit strategy. I'm not sure if anyone actually launched the infamous big heavy rocks per se. I'm not yet to see it clearly on footage. Correct me if I'm wrong. Actually, don't bother. I think someone poured them out of a backpack. I think people held them. Certainly stuff got launched at coppers, yeah. The issue I have is not that I feel bad for Sergeant Custody Death doing overtime on a Sunday. The issue is this was a coalition-led rally, driving a coalition counter-rally style scenario into a situation which I think might have been more appropriate for, say, land forces. For what reason? Well, for no particular strategic reason relevant to the day, in my view. To use another example, I know there's a bit of concern about independent anti-fascist photojournalists doing their thing. Now, personally, cost-benefit analysis, from my perspective, I think they're fucking invaluable. Even if you don't care about the value of, transparency and what have you, I know so many people who've gotten out of charges, bullshit charges laid by VicPol because of the work, the documented work of independent anti-fascist photojournalists. So I am aware that there's a risk of yourself being doxed in a vulnerable moment by the police. But my personal view is that I don't think we have enough of them on the left. I think the right has too many. Every single motherfucker seems to think they're like an independent media node, so it's so easy to dox everyone at a road rally, and you overhear all these conversations because everyone's fucking live streaming. I don't want that, but I don't want independent anti-fascist photojournalists being harassed. That's fucking ridiculous, Go and harass some fucking Nazis for once. But that's just my take, and I'm just one fucking pleb, right? But I want to say, obviously, I infer from the concerns there that it's not just that people are concerned in the fucking surveillance age of all ages, where there's cameras and CCTVs on every fucking corner, concerned with someone taking media from in a rally. I mean, you're a fucking Luddite and a boomer if you think that. It's 10 years too late to try and police that anywhere at any fucking rally, in my view. Again, regardless of my disagreements with that, that's not the only going concern, I'm aware. The other concern is that people are saying, well, there's no consent to share one's face. You should be checking in with us first. We should be getting some sort of agreement before you move ahead with that tactic. And on that, yeah, I agree. But, I infer from that consent is an issue. Well, if that's the case, then there should also be consent for bags of big heavy rocks as a tactic. Land forces, yeah, I think that's a more suitable space to do this kind of I'm in Europe, yay, kind of radical stuff with cops. This rally wasn't that. Again, it was a coalition-led rally. And actually, as we know, we crunched the numbers earlier, didn't we? All it tactically needed was to sit back and point at their reduced numbers. I'm not saying that's all you need to do with fascists. I'm saying that's all you could have done, and that's all that was achievable on that day, given that the entirety of the CBD had turned into a massive cop rally. Speaking of wayward splinter action in Melbourne, I noticed that a contingent had come down to the rally from Camp Sovereignty and, had said in speeches at the outset that they were disappointed that nobody marched in from Camp Sovereignty with them, and then later on encouraged a splinter of the rally to break off and then go back to Camp Sovereignty with them. And I thought that was strange because, as I understood it, it had been agreed by all and sundry that it was a really bad idea to start having these big lefty anti-racist counter rallies have anything to do with Camp Sovereignty. After all, it's only been a few weeks ago that the National Socialist Network and all their attendant scumbags in right-wing media sphere were all saying, oh no, you think that they just went to beat up a bunch of women and elders at the camp for no reason. No, it's actually Communist HQ. That's bullshit, of course, and we know that. But if you then start having these rallies go to or from there, you add fuel to the fire. You manifest some of these neo-Nazi accusations of it being some far-left hideout, and you therefore paint a bigger target of it. No one's interested in doing that. Bad strategy to start doing that. That was my understanding anyway. Hey, look, as I say, I'm just some pleb and I haven't been in Melbourne for years. What do I know? But that's what I'd heard. So I thought this was strange. So I had wondered if perhaps this was just sort of a contingent that had come over from the camp that was acting unilaterally and hadn't been aware of some of the discussions that had been had before it. You know what I mean? That sense that I had was bolstered when I saw this guy, the guy doing this speech now, Zelenak or DT, he put this video up afterwards.
Everyone was all jumping about, up and about it, like jumping up and down, hoo-haing about, oh, they went and marched with the Palestinian people. Guess what? We were marching at the front. Everyone marched with us, right? And they marched for their own agendas. You know why? Because they're not here, are they?
I thought, oh, that's fucking bizarre, isn't it? I'll tell you what, I've never heard an anti-racist in my life describing the Palestinians as having their own agendas. Odd way to phrase it, isn't it? Some of you might be thinking, Tom, don't give this to the right. Don't fan the flames. Oh, mate, it's too fucking late for that. Rebel News are all over it like a rash. And so are the March for Australia organisers. They're all getting in touch with him. I've seen them saying that. I don't know how all that's going. I just know that they are. And they're really excited about it. In fact, for a movement that 5 minutes ago was banning the flying of all Indigenous flags at their rallies. And for a movement that is just about to start countering Invasion Day on the 26th of January, you heard it, suddenly they seem to have, they've shifted their alignment a little bit because they think it might help them against lefties or something like that. And I wouldn't put it past him to work with them, because here is Zelenak a couple of years ago during the lockdowns.
Next week, campaign against racism and fascism are rallying against this group, are rallying against you. They're calling you a fascist, far right-wing extremist. What would you say to them?
I say, why don't you just stop all the segregation, come together for the common purpose so that we can actually heal this country and heal ourselves as people, so we can heal each other, so we can walk to a brighter day for once and for all.
Yeah, righto. Thanks, mate. You know, you're not expected to know or remember every name and face in this world, not like a fucking old warhorse like me might do, but now that you know, yeah, like next time Avi Yemeni's mate wants you to go for a walk and leave an anti-racist march, just pop that thinking cap on for a second, see, you know, does this pass muster? Is this kosher? Is this legit? We have to be really careful here, my friends. You know, as I say, next time they march on the 26th of January, I hope it's still 85% down, but I can't promise that. But I do know that they intend to counter Invasion Day marches. So we're going to be really fucking strategic and careful. You know? Let's do that. Let's act as one, hey? Righto, comrades. Thanks for your support. I'm on patreon.com/TomTanicky if you want to support me to, have the time to continue talking the way I talk. Remember, I'm independent as fuck. Nobody tells me what to say.